Scott Boda here with Steeda Autosports and our 2024 Steeda Silver Bullet 2.0. We're gonna head out to South Georgia Motorsports Park tonight to try to make a couple hits, getting ready for the NMRA Spring Break Shootout down Gainesville, Florida that's coming up in about 2 weeks. We're gonna run the car in the True Street class, try to go for that 11-second average because, well, for some reason, the car just likes to go 11s. Some 1090s, but mostly it's in that 11-second, 11.0 range. Tonight we're gonna try and lean on a little bit more, only because we know we've got to put back in the factory seats down there at the NMRA event to be legal for that class. So we'll be adding probably about another 60, 70 pounds to the car. So hopefully tonight we're looking for some low 1090s, maybe some high 1080s, but we'll see you out the track. So we're back from South Georgia Motorsports Park where we were out testing the 2024 Steeda Silver Bullet 2.0. Now, if you haven't been following this build, every single time we go to the track, the first pass of the car right off the trailer, or if we drove it up to the track, it's always the fastest pass. Second pass, third pass, fourth pass, it always goes slower. In fact, the running joke around here is, let's go up there, make one pass, and let's get on with our lives. But we want to try some things different because, quite frankly, cars should go faster. The air quality typically gets better as the night or the evening gets cooler, depending on when you're racing. So we were looking at a lot of things of what we could do differently from a technique standpoint to try to go faster as the night went on. Well, one of the things we noticed when we had our car show last month was we only had one trailer available to get the cars up to the track. Matt Henschke, our sales manager, he drove the 2024 Silver Bullet up to the track while I towed the 2018. Well, after about 5 passes on that 2024, I noticed the rear wheels were physically hot to the touch when I was adjusting air pressure. Every drag racer knows, you set your tire pressure cold, you make a run, you readjust it, your tire pressure is gonna incrementally go up the more passes you put on the car. But why were the rear wheels so hot? Well, I'm old school. When I do a burnout, left foot on the brake, right foot on the gas pedal. We felt we were putting too much heat in the brakes, and some testing back in the pits showed maybe that was the reason why our first pass was always the fastest pass. Everybody knows the more heat you put in brake pads, the more aggressive they're gonna be. Glenn Vitale talks about it all the time from a road racing perspective. I had to get heat in the brake pads in order for them to have the proper bite. They weren't biting the first couple laps. So we took that from a drag racing perspective and said, what can we do to keep heat out of these brakes? It's the only thing we could really come up with for why the car would progressively get slower. Well, when you're foot braking in a burnout box, that rear wheel is seeing 100, 110 mile an hour wheel speed in the back while my foot's on the brake pedal and we're just using that Ford Coyote horsepower to power through those rear brakes. So, got with Jamie Bell, I came up with an interesting way to still utilize the factory line lock. A lot of times when you change to drag racing brakes, you lose the factory park brake, which is common with S650s, and therefore the line lock can no longer be engaged. So Jamie Bell went to the drawing board to figure out what we can do to utilize that factory line lock, and he came out with a pretty slick setup. So we tested in the parking lot, it held, we said, hey, let's go to the track. I do believe that was a key component of why we've been wasting our time the last 6 months trying to go faster. Every pass, first pass is the fastest, but we would get so much heat in those brakes, and the Bear brakes and Hawk brake pads, let's face it, they were doing their job. When they see a lot of heat, they need to start working because they need to make sure this vehicle comes to a stop. Unfortunately, drag racing, we don't need the brakes to work that good till the end of the track. So it was actually ended up slowing us down. We think that was the key. It shows why for the first time ever, the car went faster every time. And like I said, when we did leave there Friday night, The feeling of optimism was fantastic. I joked online and on Facebook that the OG 2018 Silver Bullet, it really spoiled us. Every time we went to the track, it would just go faster and faster, and it was a ton of smiles. While I love this S650 and this platform, it has been very difficult trying to figure out why the car does whatever it wants to do, whenever it wants to do it. So, as luck would have it, our very first pass out there on Friday night, we ended up going to 1094, which was awesome. The car has not been at 1095 since November 8th of last year. That's a long time. We've been to the track about 3 or 4 times since then, trying every gear under the sun, and it just won't go faster. It'll go at 1096 and 97 and 98, you name it. We haven't been able to match that 1095. Now the current combination has actually been the same for the last couple of months. It's a 409 rear gear, Cook's long tube headers, QA1 carbon fiber drive shaft, the Auburn Pro rear diff, and then we've got the bare brakes, Circle D torque converter, turn 14 helped us out, and we got those Mickey Thompson tires wrapped around those absolutely gorgeous billet specialty wheels. And last but not least, we got the ported manifold on there from Jason at 1320 and our Steeda ProFlow air filters that just came out last week. But we haven't been able to improve on that 1095. So seeing it go at 1094 was awesome. It gave us some optimism. So instead of packing up like everybody there wanted to do, we said, you know what, let's go back out there, try to lean on the car a little bit harder and see what it does. Thank you, sir. Holy sh! Wow! She's flirting with me. To our surprise, it went faster. It went at 1093 with an 8. So we were super happy. So what do? Let's go and see if we can back it up. Felt good. I'm gonna piss these guys off if it keeps going faster. It seemed like it shifted every gear a lot better. We got a GoPro now looking down at it, making sure where it's shifting, because it really seems like it just wants to do whatever the heck it wants to do whenever it wants to do it. Tell me it's a 1080, come on. Wait, what? It ran the exact same ET, exact. I'm not sure how it was possible, but on our third attempt, we went an identical 1093 with an 8 to the thousandths of a second. In fact, if you look at all the incrementals, it's amazing how consistent the car was. And for what we're trying to do here in 2 weeks, consistency is the name of the game. All 3 of the passes we made that were full passes, they all ran in 128 miles an hour, which is almost 4 miles an hour faster than that 1095 back in November. Now some people ask, well, how to run a higher mile an hour? The biggest thing we could attribute that to is the more aggressive 409 rear gear in the back. It actually gets us into 7th gear, the 1-to-1, a lot sooner, which means we're kind of lugging it through, and we're gonna see a higher RPM in 7th gear going through the traps. Anybody knows that in order to run a good mile an hour out the back door, you wanna be crossing the finish line as close to peak power as possible. The 409 gears, keeping us in 7th gear longer, I think that's the reason why I picked up more mile an hour with no horsepower changes and worse weather. NRA Spring Break Shootout in Gainesville, Florida, we typically compete in the true street class, which means consistency. Got to drive the car 30 miles, come back, can't make any changes, 3 back-to-back-to-back passes. Now with the car running in the 1090s, we want to try to concentrate on that 11.000 bracket. So it going consistent basically all night, and especially on those second and third passes, that's really key, because we know we're going to have to add some weight to the car when we go down there to Gainesville. Now we could have packed it up and went home, but we want to try something different. Since it's got a really aggressive 409 gear ratio in the car, something we learned with the 2018 Silver Bullet is the car was actually shifting before the 60-foot mark. So it's kind of giving you a false 60-foot reading, right? So we want to try to launch the car in second gear. I know it's not tuned, we're on pump gas, we're only making 430 horsepower, but if we could lean on that Circle D torque converter harder to 60 feet, it actually might go quicker. So on our 2 1093 with an 8 passes, we went a 164 with a 1 and a 164 with a 7. On our very first pass, leaving in second gear, we were actually able to go a 160 with a 7. So went almost a half a tenth quicker to 60 feet. The problem is that you have to lock it in manual mode. And then you need the car to shift again. So you're launching the car, you're foot braking it, you're accelerating, and then you're trying to shift back up into drive so the computer can do its thing. Didn't work. Unfortunately, me, the driver, had a hard time shifting the automatic. If you push it too quickly, it actually skips past drive and goes right into neutral. Therefore, the computer says, hey, you're in neutral, you're wide open throttle, we're shutting the car down. So unfortunately that happened on our next 2 attempts. It's something I'm gonna have to work on. It was something we literally were just snowballing and brainstorming with at the track, but it does show that there is potential. So for the first time since November, we actually left the track optimistic. I mean, we've joked all along that this car has so much potential. It gets a lot of hate on the internet. I'm not really sure why. Every time Ford redesigns these products, they're gonna take it to the next level. They're gonna make it better in every way, shape, or form, and they've done that with these S650s. So once Ford allows us to tune these S650s, they're gonna absolutely fly. Look at this video of where the car shifts going down the track. Now we do have the 409 gear in the back, so that means it's going to shift 6 times and cross the stripe in 7th gear. Every gear is shifting at a different RPM. In fact, the 6th to 7th gear shift is at like 6,700, 6,800 RPMs. Now, once you're able to tune that, to be able to shift all gears closer to 75, 7,600, that was our sweet spot in the 2018 with the 10R80. These cars are gonna shave tenths of a second off of their ETs just by raising the shift points alone. To show you a little bit more about what I'm trying to explain of what we were doing out there at the strip to try to alleviate a gear change, try to lean on that Circle D torque converter a little bit harder. Let's go out there and show you what we're doing in the 2024. All right, so we're gonna go over a little process here of what we do when we get to the drag strip and what we go through here to make a pass. The guys at work have been making fun of me this week because I had problems shifting an automatic on Friday night, which is, yeah. We'll fire up the 24. Go ahead and select our modes, bring it up to drag strip, hit OK. Now we're gonna hold traction control. Now we gotta go My Mustang, track apps, line lock, hold line lock, firmly press the brake and hold. Now we can hold it and see we can give it RPM, it doesn't go anywhere. Now we're not gonna do a burnout. Hit OK to release, beautiful. We've done our burnout, we're staging the car. We want to put in second gear to really lean on that Circle D torque converter. And we're in second gear. Now, I don't think the car is going to shift. I think it's going to hit its rev limiter and die in second gear. Other people think it's actually going to shift. We were trying to manually shift it back into drive, but if you go too quickly like that, you actually go into neutral. So a small click forward would get you to drive. So let's see what happens. Because I know when we lock the gear on the dyno, it just goes to that rev limiter and stops. So let's see, we're in second. That tells me what I thought was gonna happen, thankfully, was right. Because if I could have just left it in manual mode at the track and it shifted its own gear, that would have been good. All right, we're gonna try now to do what I was incapable of doing Friday night. So we'll go manual mode. All right, let's see what happens here. That worked. I wish it worked Friday night. We'd have a 1080 time slip for you. Well, we got our answer, right? We came out here, put it in manual mode, locked it into second gear, stood on the loud pedal, and if you don't shift it out of manual mode or use the paddles, it'll just go right up, tag that rev limiter, and you're not going anywhere. So I feel a little bit better, because if it had shifted that gear, I would have felt horrible for aborting those 2 passes out there Friday night. But like we said, we were happy, the car finally went better. There's a sense of optimism that we know we've got more on the table. We're gonna continue to experiment with some things. We got some trick new parts coming out for these S650s. So make sure you stay tuned to Steeda.com. Hit like, subscribe, follow us on our YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. And remember the most important thing, Steeda, where speed matters.